Hi, I'm Senator Tom Udall, and you're watching the Udall Update. Thank you for joining me for the Udall Update, where you get an inside look at what's happening in our nation's capital and how it impacts life in New Mexico. It's been a while since our last episode, but I'm pleased to return. In today's Udall Update, we'll take a closer look at two important laws I passed on behalf of New Mexicans. We'll share the story of a Carlsbad family turning tragedy into a nationwide cause, helping millions. And I'll sit down with a New Mexico hero for a special interview about our partnership fighting for military families. And then finally, I'll respond to a letter in Tom's inbox about what I'm doing to help our communities in rural New Mexico. But first, here are a few things that have been going on since our last Udall Update.
The past year brought great change to our state, and Senator Udall's commitment to New Mexico is strengthened as a result. At the end of the last Congress, Tom joined his colleagues in saying goodbye to Senator Jeff Bingaman. Speaking on the Senate floor, Tom thanked Senator Bingaman for his 30 years of service to New Mexico and the nation.
Jeff Bingaman has lived a life of service, substantial, enduring, noble service. I have no doubt that though he is leaving the Senate, he will find other ways to serve, and New Mexico and our nation will be better for it. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship, and always for your wise counsel.
I consider it an honor and a privilege to have represented the people of New Mexico. To all my friends and colleagues who will be here in the next Congress and in future Congresses, I hope you can find the common ground necessary for our country to effectively move forward and meet its challenges. The endeavor is a worthy one, and I wish you every success.
Senator Bingaman's retirement also ushered in new leadership for our state in Washington, D.C. This January, Tom joined New Mexicans in welcoming Martin Heinrich to the Senate. At the same time, Tom became a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, an important position for the state. Tom is using his position as New Mexico's senior senator and as a member of the Appropriations Committee to fight for New Mexico priorities in Washington.
Madam Chair, let me just say to you what a great pleasure it is to participate in my first Senate Appropriations Committee hearing. I wish it was under more pleasant circumstances. Sequestration threatens damaging cuts for New Mexico's national labs, military facilities, and border security. My second question was about the travel that veterans, many times in New Mexico, they have to travel 5 and 6 hours to get to the VA center in Albuquerque, sometimes spend the night and then come back, and it takes a person from the family or others to take time to drive them when they're older. Part of my question is to ask about what this budget does to increase transportation options for vets. Mr. Secretary, coming from a state where water infrastructure is a priority need, in almost every community it's unsettling to see the proposed cuts in the President's FY14 budget. I'm especially concerned about the cuts of almost 50% to grants and loans for water and wastewater infrastructure for tribal communities and colonias. Even the basic need for running water is not being filled in many of these communities in New Mexico. The last 2 years have seen the largest wildfires in New Mexico history. We're in a drought and we're bracing for the worst year yet. I'm very concerned, however, that the President's fiscal 14 budget request for hazardous fuels reduction for the Office of Wildland Fire is reduced by $88.9 million. This is a 48% cut for the program, and it just seems to me that this isn't the area to be cutting. Cleanup of waste, including plutonium waste at Los Alamos, is critical for DOE to meet its commitments to New Mexico. General, I very much appreciate your answer, but it's very, very difficult, I think, to have a transparent debate about secret programs approved by a secret court issuing secret court orders based on secret interpretations of the law. It's an honor being New Mexico's senior senator, but it is also a great responsibility to work hard on behalf of our state and get things done in Washington. One way I can do this is by offering sensible solutions in Congress, which brings us to our first segment, where we take a closer look at one piece of legislation I've sponsored on behalf of New Mexicans. Many of you know the story of Katie Sepich, a New Mexico State University graduate student who was tragically killed in 2003. Her parents, Dave and Jayann of Carlsbad, worked tirelessly to pass Katie's Law in New Mexico, giving law enforcement enhanced tools to solve crimes and save lives. I was proud to partner with them to introduce the Katie Sepich Enhanced DNA Collection Law at the federal level, to honor Katie's memory and to help other states pass their own version. I'm proud to say that 2 days after what would have been Katie's 32nd birthday, the Senate passed our bill unanimously, and shortly after, President Obama signed it into law. I invited the Sepich family to my Washington office to present them with signed copies. It was a proud day for a family we have come to know and admire. Because of their hard work, Katie's memory will live on. This year is the 10th anniversary of her death, and we sat down with Jayann to talk more about their journey, about getting the new bill passed, and how it's already helping other states pass a Katie's Law of their own. Here's a clip.
It's wonderful, of course, to have a federal bill named after Katie, but what's even more important is what it does. What this bill does is provide incentive implementation grants, one-time grants to states to allow them to overcome that hurdle of setting up funding so that they can take on arrestee testing DNA and get it implemented. It's not an ongoing program where the federal government pays for something going forward. It's just a one-time grant so that states can get over that initial funding hurdle. And then, of course, they take over the funding themselves to pay for their own programs. Well, it started in November, late November, when I got a phone call that our bill was moving in the House. And so naturally, we started making phone calls and sending emails and reaching out to not only everyone we'd met here on the Hill, staffers and members of Congress, but also people that we'd worked with around the country, state legislators, asking them to call, crime lab people that we'd worked with across the country and asking them to call. And so we had people all across the country making phone calls and sending emails and asking for this law to indeed move forward. And it did. And we were just so incredibly excited when we found out that it had passed the House by a 2/3 majority. And then, of course, because of the late date, we had to have unanimous consent of the Senate, and we got the word that there were no holes left on our bill and that 100 senators had said, yes, this is what we want to do. We were absolutely thrilled. That was to mark the 5-year anniversary of Katie's murder, and we founded the nonprofit association DNA Saves, and our goal is just to spread the news about the power of DNA, how it can truly save lives. And that was why it was founded, and we've been able to move forward through that organization. After Katie's Law passed in 2006 in New Mexico, it was the 6th state to pass an arrestee DNA testing law, so we had 44 more states that needed this law. We decided as a family to take that on as our mission. We've already seen such a tremendous result of passing the Katie Sepich Enhanced DNA Collection Act. State crime labs are very anxious to see arrestee DNA testing passed in their states. And it does send a message when the United States Congress says this is something that we'd like to see move forward, and we're providing grants in order to see that that happens. It makes a difference. You know, we've been so incredibly grateful of the support we've had from our congressional delegation, from our representatives, and also, of course, from Senator Udall and Senator Bingaman before he retired. We've had tremendous support, and we just want to say thank you. She was our sunshine. That's what we called her. We called her Sunshine.
I was proud to work with the Sepich family on this sensible solution, and I look forward to seeing their work expand in all 50 states. It's very inspiring to see New Mexicans doing such tremendous work for others. In that spirit, we continue with our segment to hear from another New Mexico family who's helping veterans and military families across the nation. I'll never forget the first time I spoke with Master Sergeant Jessey Baca. As a member of the New Mexico Guard, Jessey served his country bravely in Iraq. He was stationed in Balad, home to one of the military's largest and most unfortunate waste centers, called open-air burn pits. These burn pits contained medical waste, plastics, and other trash, often ignited by jet fuel, creating thick, black fumes of deadly air pollution and toxic chemicals. Jessey has since battled numerous invisible wounds, believed to be caused by these burn pits, including life-threatening chemical-induced asthma. But in between doctor's appointments, Jessey has become one of our nation's greatest advocates for other service members who also faced exposure. Together, we worked hard to pass a bill in Congress creating a burn pits registry to help patients, doctors, and the VA understand the links to medical diseases facing our veterans so that they can receive the proper treatment necessary to heal. I was proud to work with Republican Senator Bob Corker and leaders from both parties to get this bill signed into law. The Burn Pits Registry was a sensible solution, and it's now being created by the VA. But this would not have happened without Jessey's remarkable work. Earlier today, I sat down with the Bacas to talk about their efforts, and today I'm pleased to share their story with you in our featured segment. From their home in Albuquerque, South Valley, to the fields of Balad, Iraq, to the halls of Congress in Washington, Master Sergeant Jessey Baca and his wife Maria have been fighting for military families in New Mexico and across the country. Today, I'm pleased to welcome them to the Udall Update to share their story with you. Jessey and Maria, it's really an honor to have you here today, visit with us and visit with us about the kinds of things we've been working on over the last several months. Let me first of all, Jessey, ask you why, many New Mexicans come from this. Why were you inspired to serve, to get into the Guard and to do the things that you did? And tell us a little bit about your service early on. What got you to that point?
Thank you, Senator, first of all, for having us here. Well, it's a lifelong dream. My father was in the Navy years ago, just right after Korea. His brother served. All our family has seemed to military service is the way to go. All my uncles were in Vietnam, and ever since childhood, I admired the uniform, and it was something that I was just bound to do. And I joined as a teenager. I had just finished my junior year of high school, and I already knew what I wanted to do. Went on active duty with the Navy, did my 4 years. I came home. I had my wife and my 2 daughters, and I said, I want to continue my military service. So I joined the Air National Guard. I was there about a year, and lo and behold, they hired me full-time, and I've made it a lifelong career. I've been there a little over 30 years now. And during that
30 years of service, I mean, that's remarkable, and you're still a very young man. And part of that service was in Balad in Iraq.
Yes.
And there were burn pits there. You saw how they were operated. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The burn pits were a big disposal site. Everything from trash to medical waste to any kind of debris was thrown into these pits and lit with jet fuel, contaminated fuel. I know it was a means of getting rid of these things, but all the service members were exposed to that.
And they were very large. We're talking about the size of 10 football fields.
Absolutely.
Or something like that.
At my estimation, it was like a 10-acre field with a huge pit dug with bulldozers and an array of equipment. And all this debris was thrown in there, and it burned continuous.
And many times they would use fuel, jet fuel or something to ignite them.
Yes.
Could you describe the color of the smoke that would come out of these pits?
A lot of times it was a real deep black smoke with a blue tint to it, a horrible smell. And it burned 24/7. It never stopped. It would slow down at times, What I mean slowing down would be like a building on fire.
Yeah.
And when it was big, it was a city was on fire. And it stayed like that the months that I was there. It never slowed down.
And were soldiers being exposed to this smoke? And were you exposed to it?
Absolutely. We were only a few hundred yards away from it, from where the F-16s operated. There was a lot of troops in support all around the burn pits, all around.
Tell me about the impact of the smoke on your health.
What it's done to me is it's a lung injury. They call it constrictive bronchiolitis. And what it does, in plain English, it damages the smallest airways of your lungs. And it is a terminal condition. My doctors tell me there is no cure for this. They treat you for like a severe asthma type symptom, but there's no cure for this at this time.
Yeah. And Maria, I know that you've seen his breathing and seen it change over time. Can you give me a little description, hearing him talk about this?
Well, hearing him talk about it, it's hard. It was hard. It's hard to swallow, especially at the beginning, because nobody really understood what was going on with him, and that was the tough part. When he breathes, he feels like a cactus is coming out of him, just like a lot of stickers, just a cactus coming out of him. He has trouble breathing. If he breathes in, it's like this burning sensation that he gets all through the inside of his body, and he has a hard time with that. There's times that I actually put my hand in front of him to make sure he's breathing, because it's so hard for him to just let it back out, especially on the worst days, It's very emotional, for our family.
In terms of describing the breathing and realizing that he had problems, you also, both of you, I think, thought of other soldiers, folks under your command, and you came up with the idea of a burn pit registry, working on a registry. Could you tell us a little bit about the thinking there?
How it started, that started in June of 2010, where the big part started. We had been doing a lot of research before that. And in June of 2010, I ran into a site from another burn pit family, and it was just called Burn Pit on Facebook, really. And it was under Jill Wilkins out of Florida. And I started reading that. And then there was another family I had posted on there that we were at Vanderbilt, looking at, visiting with a doctor, Dr. Robert Miller. And at that time, another burn pit family, pinged me on there and asked, if what kind of problems my husband was having. So I mentioned it to her. And from that point on is really when all these families, there was 10 families altogether, including us, we all got together and started talking about needing to change law, needing to have this recognized more and more, because we kept noticing more and more through Facebook. There was many different people coming on, pinging everybody on what was happening throughout the country. So we got together and we started working on a burn pit bill. And at that time, there was another person, but that person couldn't get it out, and they asked me, they says, Maria, do you know if one of your senators would be willing to, to pick this up? And I go, oh, you're darn right I do. I go, I will make a phone call to Senator Udall's office right now as soon as we hang up, and I will ask him, I will ask Matt to speak to Senator Udall about it. They said, what do you think? And I said, I have no doubt in my mind. I said, I have no doubt in my mind. And that's when I made the phone call to you all. And I spoke to Matt Padilla.
We had, you and I, you
Oh,
spoke
yeah.
with Matt, and you and I had a very good
Right
discussion.
after that, you and I had a 45-minute conference call, and I think that your ears have not healed from that yet.
I think you're probably right about that. I want to go back one step to talk about his treatment. And the finding of all of these doctors, or some of the doctors, was that this was connected to what had happened to you in terms of being exposed to burn pits.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I had no history of it. I was in perfect condition.
Yeah.
I was a half marathon runner, and now I couldn't even do my PT anymore. And all of us fell into that category. Great health, you come back from deployment and your health is deteriorated.
Tell me about your health today, just a short
Sure,
summary of your health today.
Can't run anymore. A lot of difficulty, a lot of pain, shortness of breath. What makes it very difficult, Maria was saying, I can breathe in, but I can't breathe out. That's a classic symptom. They call it air trapping. Your lungs just don't operate like they should. And it's because they're becoming, they call it fibrosis. Your lungs are getting real hard where they should be very fluid-like. And that's the biggest part. And I can feel myself slowing down every day. Every day it's a little bit different. And that's the day-to-day life that we live through. My doctor calls me his best student. I've followed his words to the letter, and apparently I'm one of the ones doing the best. And it's exercise, good health, stress level down, incredible support system. I couldn't ask for better, and that's what has brought me to this day.
And really, when you were going through the treatments, at the same time, you were also working to help other military families, to try to work with them, talk with them. It sounded like, Maria, the way you described it, you were networking across the internet around the country.
Yes.
And there was increasing understanding that you needed to advocate for a bill. And we're back to where you said you gave me a call, and we started getting geared up on this. You remember when we had the hearing in front of the Senate
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Veterans Affairs Committee? Both of you were there. Can you describe how you felt about that?
Wow. It was, you know what? We had so much pride, and at the same time, it was sad for us. It was sad to hear what we were going through, that it was really us. You know, he would look at me, you know, and he'd be like, you know, just that look on his face. Is that really us? Is he talking about us? You know, it's so hard because to face a terminal condition like this, you know, is difficult for a whole family, you know, for everybody. And you stop and see there are so many families going through what we're going through. So many families that you just really do. You network with all these families, and you find, you know, just like these 10 families that I talk about, out of these 10 families, 5 of them are gone already. There's only 5 of them left out of these 10 families, not including the hundreds of others that are out there that have died from this. And that's the sad part. But you know what? It gives us such a positive to know that New Mexico has stood so strong with us, that got out there and just fought for us, fought for every veteran across the country. We had so much pride. We have so much pride in New Mexico for what they've done, because it was New Mexico that put this bill, this burn pit registry bill, on the map. It was New Mexico that did it. When you told us, we became bipartisan instantly. It was amazing. It was just amazing. We knew that New Mexico wasn't going to leave any soldier left behind.
Well, one of the things that your network of families did is you built the bipartisan support. This wasn't an issue about Democrats or Republicans or independents. This was an issue about military families, about people who served like Jessey, that had this contact with these fumes and smoke, and it had an impact on their lungs. And so really, you know, you're thanking us, but we're also thanking you, because I don't think this would have happened without your energy and your input and just your incredible effort to really push this forward.
Thank you. You guys, if it wasn't for you, we would never have been able to do this and to fulfill a dream of my husband's. You know, we have worked hard in fulfilling his bucket list of anything and everything he's wanted to do. And I told him, I promised him 4 years ago, I would leave no stone unturned to find a cure for him. I was going to do it, and I have. There's no cure. The only cure there is just to continue the family strength that we have and to continue the fight. God will ultimately cure him.
And the remarkable thing to me is he is still serving.
Yes, he's still
today
serving.
As a civilian employee. You're still there backing up the men and women and still working hard on all of this.
Absolutely.
He's been
Yes.
a wonderful dual status technician
Dual status technician.
with the New Mexico Air National Guard, and he's an amazing, amazing airman and sailor. He has given almost 37 years of his life to the military.
Well, let me just conclude here by first of all just thanking you both for your service, for your sacrifice. It's been a remarkable thing for me to get to know you and to be able to share experiences with you. And I really truly believe that if you and these other military families joined together, we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of trying to help them and getting this burn pit registry going. So thank you very much, and thank you for being on the show here with us. I think many people will see this and be inspired by your example and your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
you.
Appreciate
You
it.
bet.
Thank you.
You bet. Before we end this episode of the Udall Update, it's time to take a look at Tom's inbox. Every day I receive messages from constituents across New Mexico, letters, emails, and posts on my Facebook page. Recently I received a letter from Wayne in Harding County who wants to see Congress work to help rural communities. My situation in Roy reflects many in this area, he says. Inflation, drought, a lack of health care, and job opportunities. Wayne told me about moving to Roy to help with his family's cattle operation, but how the drought caused him to sell most of his uncle's cattle because of the lack of grass and the high cost of feed and hay, which has gone up to $6,200 a truckload. As you may know, Roy is 70 miles to any doctors or discount stores, so fuel costs is important to all here, he wrote. I can do almost anything, welding, construction, plumbing, electrical, but job opportunities are slim here. Wayne wrote about how his wife has taken a part-time job with the school just to make ends meet, and how she wishes the federal government would focus more on jobs, health care, education, and economic issues. Wayne, let me say first, thank you for writing in. I agree that Congress should be focused on helping businesses create jobs and rebuild the economy. I want you to know that strengthening New Mexico's rural communities is one of my top priorities. It is a responsibility I take very seriously, and the subject New Mexicans ask me about most often as I travel throughout the state. How do we promote economic growth in rural communities so people can make a decent living in a place they love and where their family has lived for generations? One way we can do this is to make sure federal investments are going to the communities that need them the most. This year I've worked hard to get USDA rural development funds moving through Congress. In the Farm Bill we passed earlier this year, then in the Agricultural Appropriations Subcommittee I serve on, these funds help create exactly the kind of economic opportunities you are talking about for rural America. They help build infrastructure projects like water systems, housing, and health clinics. They also get small businesses going, which creates jobs for rural residents. I have met with the Harding County Economic and Community Development Corporation in Mosquero and in Roy to improve the quality of life there and to make sure these investments are reaching Harding County. Wayne, this is just one of the key things I'm doing for rural New Mexico, but we have much more to do. To learn more about the work I'm doing, visit my website at tomudall.senate.gov. That's it for this edition of the Udall Update. You can find out more about the issues we covered today on my website. Also, be sure to join the conversation on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, watch my videos on YouTube, and see my photos on Flickr. Until next time, thank you for joining me for the Udall Update. Cheers, take care.